The tanker's commander stands next to his senior subordinate, Damian Andropov, as they position themselves closer to the warhead retrieved from the submarine. But this career man of the sea can't help, though, to look at the sub-survivors rowing away from the vicinity of both ships. And even though the seamen would fare better if they had made it through the dangerous waters to the tanker, they opted instead to row towards the open sea. Pride is the greatest killer of men during both war and peace. The man responsible for the New Horizons future keeps on watching as the oars on each raft continue to shift water behind them as the submarine crew paddles away. And a regret this man has as he counts the surviving members of the submarine's crew in his mind won't be shared with anyone from his crew. It is a remorse that adversaries have after a battle concludes. Half a crew gone, and while taking a direction that might cost more lives, was unacceptable to this commander's way of thinking. It was acceptable to the submarine's commander. A lot of letters to grieving loved ones would have to be written about this flooded submarine, and this information, although limited, came to Captain Romanoff in the way of a long-ago dream. The evidence, though, to back up his assertion was simple for him to deduce. Half a contingent of submariners has exited through only one hatch. No smoke present, and the submersible has lost all buoyancy. Thank God, half the crew had survived. Fighting an enemy in a war is one thing, but experiencing needless death in peace is tragic. This commander of Slavic origin knew what his mission was. It was to destroy the head of the beast, Washington, D.C., while it was at its weakest. But being ordered and wanting is two different things. Victory in war is glorified and prestigious, while surprise attacks during peace is unconscionable as well as vicious. Half his crew is Jewish, Christian, and other forbidden religions in the former Soviet Union, while the other half are atheists and old-time Communist Party Reds. None of the crew, though, took pride in the fact that Mother Russia was going to be condemned as another Japan with the December 7, 1941 sneak attack at Pearl Harbor, or as another America for the A-bomb drops on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, or being identified even with Germany, the worst offender of a historically recorded atrocity for the Holocaust. There are many other countries in comparison that performed ethnic cleansing, but only a limited few for major countries that provoked total outrage. Fortunately, the captain's mind is brought back to the present, as his ship, standing unnaturally still in the water, suddenly starts pivoting in a circle, and the ocean's currents or flow does not hamper its progress. This ship, his ship, wasn't moving forward, but rather slowly changing directions as it moved. The engine room attendants were not even involved. The commander, though, ordered the ship stopped, but all the crew down in the engine room could do was laugh as they looked around at each other, putting band-aids on blistered and bruised fingers and hands. And this wasn't even taking into account the mental anguish that took place, which resulted in their bloodied egos, and they still held the tools, the wrenches, and the ratchets that they conducted their battle with that are now broken or contorted out of place. The battle lasted only minutes between an inanimate object, the engine, and the crew, but the engine won. The ship is on its way, but not to America and not back home. Unfortunately, the crises on the ocean never cease, as shouts from below deck are heard from another compartment, as other crewmen scurry out from the whole area screaming. All the missiles have activated. Captain Romanoff grabs one of the crew members running by for additional info, but all he can muster is a simple time, 15 minutes. Damian Antropov, the senior tech present, also hears the time frame, but the time was not significant to him because the warhead he retrieved from the submarine and now lay on the deck also has 15 minutes displayed on its register. Fortunately, though, the time was frozen in place, not in reduction. The captain stares at the time, trying to imagine its significance, as it being only a quarter of an hour. He then thinks about the occurrences presently taking place. A dead ship is moving on its own, warheads have activated, and set a period of time at 15 minutes. But why? The man looks around to see if he can garner any more clues, but all he can fathom is the rubber rafts of the submariners heading out to sea. He then looks at the submarine across the narrow breach of ocean, and where it was sinking before, it appears to be rising in the water. And blinking his eye, he can only imagine it swerving in the same direction as the tanker. The man again stares for a longer time at the rafts, as if his life depended on it, where the men are fleeing peril, but he still does not understand. And why is it that this period of time displayed on the warhead, lying on his deck, does not move? Speculation, though, is pushed aside because his answer has to be in the real and now. He struggles to remember back to the problems his ship has had with their lifeboats, and then further back to the tedious drills he put his men through in abandoning ship, and the time set for successful completion was 15 minutes or less. Suddenly, though, a strange stare appeared on the commander's face as he discovered the truth to his query concerning the time, and though to others it might appear that he's simply surmising an action, they are wrong, because he's certain in his belief as he turns and looks at the warhead, but this time he knows it is looking back. Man against metal was the only clue he needed to remember, as he takes his senior sergeant by surprise when he yells out for the man to hear, "This is a goddamn race." And before the man can respond, the commander yells out one last command that he expects the crew to obey, and those two words screamed at the top of his lungs were, "Abandon ship." At the precise moment the word ship was spoken, the timer engaged, clicking down from 15 minutes to 14:59 and 59 seconds and continuing on. The commander, though, knew the lifeboats were going to work this time, because this thing controlling this ship up until now never allowed his crew to be harmed. How far away from the ship can they get in 15 minutes is hard to imagine. But the commander grabs ropes, grabs hooks, and grabs gears. Anything to help his crew put the boats in the water.